check the live stream real quick, make sure we're on. Perfect. Well, you might notice that my face is in full this week, and if you see me kind of doing weird things with my face, I do have a serious cut in the side of my mouth. So if I seem to be stumbling on my words or muttering something or my eyes seem to be watering, it's because I am in immense pain. But my face is also red due to the fact that a buddy of mine had a bachelor party over the weekend. We spent all day on the river, our local river, for about 8 hours, and I got burnt to a crisp. But welcome. If you're new to the channel, we do this every Monday about 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific, talking all things in a wrap-up of our previous week. So last week was History Week on the channel, so today we're talking a little bit about history, with the caveat that if you're new to the channel, you would not be aware of this, but a few weeks back, maybe 5 or 6 weeks ago, I found out that all of the files on my hard drive were corrupted, meaning that all of our usual files are no longer accessible. So I've slowly been building that back up. Today, our history live stream is not going to have a ton of the usual elements that we usually use for our live streams. So it will probably be more of a brief live stream, but we said that last week and it ended up being quite a bit longer than we expected. So we start things talking about our roundup of the week, specifically with sports. So in sports roundup, MLB, all of the division leaders are the same as they were last week, and all of the teams are starting to pull ahead a little bit now. I'm looking, the Orioles are 3 games ahead of the Rays in the AL East. Twins are 4.5 games ahead of the Guardians in the Central. Rangers are 2.5 games ahead of the Astros. It was looking like the Astros were closing that gap, and now it's looking like things are stalling there. In the National League, the Braves are 11 games ahead of the Phillies. It would be a shock if anyone were to unseat the Braves by the end of the season. Brewers are 3.5 games ahead of the Cubs, and the Dodgers pulling ahead with an 8.5 point lead, or game lead, ahead of the division rival San Francisco Giants. The other big news coming out of the MLB this week makes me very sad as a Brewers fan. There is a rumor going around that due to the stadium deal that the Milwaukee Brewers have with American Family Field, the former Miller Park, which is supposedly expiring in 2030, they could be looking to relocate, not just build a new stadium, but relocate. The big kicker, right, or the easy answer right now, if they were to move the team, which would break my heart as a Wisconsin sports fan, someone who loves the city of Milwaukee, someone who loves the Brewers and their fan base, the easy option would be to go to Nashville. Their AAA team, the Nashville Sounds, is already there. They have a ballpark in place that they could use for a few years while they were to build an actual MLB-sized ballpark at about 30,000. I'm not quite sure how much the ballpark, capacity-wise, how much that ballpark holds, how many people with the Sounds, but Nashville is kind of a hot spot right now for American social politics, if that makes any sense. People are moving to Nashville in droves, same way they're moving to Texas in droves. Nashville is a hotbed right now, so that would be the easy option if the MLB were to not want to just expand. But the Brewers have been given warning by the MLB executives, talking about how you see the example with Oakland now moving to Las Vegas. You see the Rays struggling to continue their stadium deal in St. Petersburg, have been trying to relocate for years and could be relocating, have been looking for a new home in the Tampa Bay area for years, could essentially be relocating to anywhere like Nashville or Portland. That is the speculation going on right now. But like I said, as a Brewers fan, that breaks my heart. The Brewers have been in Milwaukee since 1970. They moved from Seattle. They were originally the Seattle Pilots, only played 1 season before moving to Milwaukee, which has hosted baseball before. Obviously, it was home of the Milwaukee Braves, who are now in Atlanta. Milwaukee, huge sports town historically. Used to have a basketball team. Well, still do have a basketball. What am I talking about? Used to have a basketball team in the form of the Hawks. I've never had professional hockey really, but baseball, basketball, and of course football being nearby in Green Bay. It's always been a hotbed for sports, and as a Wisconsin sports fan, it breaks my heart to hear rumors like that. Moving over to hockey, there hasn't been a ton of hockey news. Of course, the preseason, I guess, is just kind of starting. The NHL announced an official partnership, or official branding. I don't know the wording I'm looking for. They announced NHL Australia, which is essentially an advertising partner or a broadcasting service in Australia where they are talking about hockey for the Australian people. Australia has had an ice hockey league for several years that has struggled to get off the ground for obvious reasons. Obviously, cricket, rugby, Australian football are going to be the big sports you see in the land down under, but the NHL looking to move a global series to Australia. And the other big news coming out of the NHL this week was that the Boston Bruins, all of the three captains from their Stanley Cup team about 12 years ago are now retired. Zdeno Chara has not played for the last couple seasons. I think he retired as a member of the Islanders, if I'm not mistaken. He may have been traded. I can't remember which the order was, if it was Washington before New York or which. But obviously he's been gone for a couple years. And then Patrice Bergeron announced his retirement earlier this summer, and now David Krejci is also now retiring. So the original core of that 2011 Boston Bruins team, who broke my heart as a Vancouver Canucks fan, they are all gone now. The original core of that early 2010s team is now all gone, all retired, and that is the big news out of hockey. Nothing big in basketball news except for the Naismith Hall of Fame induction ceremony. We saw people like Dirk Nowitzki, Dwayne Wade, and Greg Popovich were the big names to kind of come out of the induction this season, so we got some speeches through that. But in terms of the season up ahead, not a ton of huge news. Like hockey, it's kind of moving into that preseason weird kind of atmosphere the 2 months leading into the season. You're not quite sure what's going on. You're not quite sure when things are returning, as if you're a casual fan, that is. But that is everything moving forward with the NBA. Football news, of course, the actual preseason started. We talked about last week with the Hall of Fame game in Canton, but this week was the first week for every single team. My Green Bay Packers looked not bad. They played the Cincinnati Bengals. Of course, Bengals weren't going to start any of their big starters, but Green Bay, you had a chance to have Jordan Love make his debut as a Packer starter, I guess you could say. And then who was the backup quarterback? It's a guy I am not familiar with. Alex Magoo did make an appearance. Sean Clifford threw 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. Of course, the Bengals were headed by Trevor Siemian, who did not throw any touchdowns but did have an interception. The final score of that game was 36-19. Other trade rumors around the NFL. You see rumors that Kyler Murray could potentially be headed elsewhere. No team securing really any want for Kyler Murray, but the Cardinals have been fairly straightforward in their opinions on him as their leading quarterback in the last couple seasons, especially with his injury last year. So expect to see moves potentially made for Kyler Murray sometime, either this preseason or just during this season. I don't know if we talked about it last week or not. Teddy Bridgewater signed with the Detroit Lions. He is slated to be their backup ahead of Hendon Hooker, but that could be replaced halfway through the season. Of course, Jared Goff still in command at the quarterback position in Detroit. Canadian football, my BC Lions looked good on Saturday night against the Calgary Stampeders. I think the final score was something like 37-7. Let me look it up. Let's see here. CFL scores. The Argonauts had a shootout with the Red Blacks, 44-31. They lead the power rankings right now. They're well and above the top of the East right now. 37-9 was the final score in the Lions versus Stampeders. The Alouettes smoked the Rough Riders, 41-12, and the Blue Bombers edged one out against the Edmonton Elks, 38-29. BC second place. My BC Lions second place in the West. Had a shootout with the Bombers, and by shootout, I mean they got shot out by the Bombers last week. So hopefully in a rematch later on this season, or especially in the playoffs, the Lions can recuperate against the Winnipeg team. But Winnipeg looks strong, although with their performance against Edmonton, I do have a lot of hope. Edmonton now 0-9, 0-10 maybe? That was Thursday night. Oh, we lost my camera. Hold on one sec. There we are. My bad. Let's turn that light back on. Okay, back to football news. Let's talk about association football here. I'm pulling up my sheets. 3 of the 5, the Big 5 leagues this started this week. Upcoming this week, of course, the Bundesliga and Serie A start their seasons. But in La Liga, my team is Real Madrid. That's not really anything special. As an American, you either typically cheer for Real Madrid or Barcelona. But Real Madrid had a 2-0 victory over Bilbao. Bilbao at the bottom of the rankings right now alongside Celta Vigo and Almeria. All three teams, lost by a 2-score deficit. So they sit at the technical bottom of the table. Real Madrid tied in a technical first place spot with two other teams, Osasuna and Rayo Vallecano. Right now, Atletico Madrid is up 1-0 over Granada at half. And that is the only match going on today, rather. In Ligue 1, that is the French league, my PSG struggled against Lorient, and I believe it was a 0-0 tie, so both sit at the 11 and 12 spots in that 18-team table. Top of the table technically right now is Rennes, who had a 5-1 victory over FC Metz. So Rennes is the technical leader in the championship for Ligue 1. At the bottom of the table, there are 2 spots for relegation. Technically, those right now belong to Metz. Like I said, lost in a 1-5 loss to Rennes. And then Clermont is also at the bottom of that table. They had a 2-4 loss against Monaco. In the Premier League, my Chelsea, actually, I was very satisfied. They played at home at Stamford Bridge. They have not won a game a match at Stamford Bridge, for talking like an American. They have not won a match since March. I believe it's 9 straight that they have not won a match at home. They played Liverpool. Liverpool is a strong team going into this season. You still have the likes of Virgil van Dijk. You got the obvious Mohamed Salah, who was taken out in the second half to his own surprise. Of course, Jurgen Klopp is still the manager there. They won the title 4 years back, I believe. It's been 3 straight for Manchester City, but I believe they were the team that won it before Man City started their reign of terror. Technical first place right now belongs to Newcastle. They had a 5-1 victory over Aston Villa. Aston sits at the bottom of the technical table right now after one match alongside Burnley and Luton Town. I do apologize. I think in previous live streams I had called them Luton Town. It is, of course, pronounced Luton. But Luton and Burnley, who were promoted last season, currently sit at the bottom of the table to be sent back to the championship alongside Aston Villa, who has been in, was it 15 or 12 that they were promoted? They obviously longtime members of the Premier League. Right now, Man United is up 1-0 over Wolves, is the only active game going on right now, only active match, So Newcastle, like I said, a 4-goal differential. Sitting right below them is a 2-way tie between Brighton and Man City. Brighton had a 4-1 victory. That's my wife's team. She was very happy about that. 4-1 victory over Luton. And then Man City, of course, opened things with a 3-0 victory over Burnley. Elsewhere, you see Arsenal in technical 4th place. They had a 2-1 victory in their opening match. Crystal Palace sitting in technical 5th place, just ahead of Fulham. The other big news coming out of this week in soccer news, or football news, if you're a non-North American, I do apologize. Harry Kane did get officially transferred to Bayern Munich, made his debut against Red Bull Leipzig in their cup match. Leipzig did end up winning. I think it was 3-0, a hat trick. I can't remember who the goal scorer was for Leipzig. But, of course, Bayern losing that at home at Allianz Arena in Munich. Harry Kane was transferred. PSG rumors, no official word on where Kylian Mbappe could go. He was sat in the first match against Lorient. Will probably likely stay with the team for the rest of the season. And I do apologize. I think earlier this year sometime I mentioned that Son Heung-min, the South Korean player for Tottenham, was transferred to Saudi Arabia. He was not. He turned down that deal and is, of course, still in Tottenham. They had a draw this week against Brentford, I believe. But he is currently the captain now that Harry Kane is in Bayern Munich. College sports. Last week we didn't touch on it because I didn't know about it at the time that we went live. The Pac-12 is gone, essentially. It is currently called the Pac-12, but it only remains with 4 teams. The 4 teams remaining are Stanford, California, Oregon State, and Washington State. So the 2 state schools from the Northwest, and then Cal Berkeley and Stanford, are all that is left of the Pac-12 conference. You saw Utah. Let me make sure I get this right. I believe it was Utah, Arizona, and Arizona State that are going to the Big 12, and Washington and Oregon, just the universities, are going to the Big 10 alongside the already announced USC and UCLA. Also announced previously was Colorado moving to the Big 12. So the Big 12, if I'm doing my math correctly, the Big 12 gains 4 schools from the Pac-12, and the Big 10 also gains 4 schools from the Big 12. That leaves the Big 10 with 18 schools going into next season, and if I am not mistaken, the Big 12 will then have 16 schools going into next season. The Power 5 conferences are no longer the Power 5. It is now just the Power 4, and it's looking like the Atlantic Coast Conference could potentially be in danger too with their media rights deals and looking to expand as well. If they don't expand, they could be in rough shape along with the Pac-12. I don't think the ACC is in anywhere near as bad shape as the Pac-12 was. Actually, kind of as a joke, this was back when USC and UCLA announced their departure from the Pac-12. I made a thumbnail. Obviously, if you've clicked onto this for the thumbnail, we're kind of, I always do stupid thumbnails, clickbait type stuff. But I made a thumbnail for our upcoming college football week in a couple weeks, talking about the death of the Pac-12. And I was joking then. Things kind of come true sometimes, whether it be art imitating life or sports imitating life or life imitating whatever. But yeah, the Pac-12 is in rough shape. If I were in charge, I would merge with the Mountain West. That seems to be the obvious answer, and just accept the fact that you're no longer a power conference. There's not a lot of options left for the 4 remaining schools. The Atlantic Coast Conference has talked about taking in those schools, which would kind of screw with the geography aspect of the Atlantic Coast Conference. But thus is the case. That is all that remains. That's our roundup of the week. Let's talk about history. And all I have to really talk about today in terms of history, like I said, with the fact that we don't have our usual files here, let me switch over to this camera. We don't have our typical spreadsheets to talk about history. I'm still working to build those back up. So in a few months' time, when we come back to history as a topic, hopefully those are a little more complete. But this one, I think we talked about it a few weeks back. This is a countries spreadsheet. Here we have a list of countries. You go across their full name, their endonym, which is what the people in the country call that territory, its area in kilometers, population density per kilometer, primary language and how often it is spoken or how much of the population speaks said language, the most popular ethnicity, the capital city and its population, the largest city and its population, the majority biome of said country, continent, region, independent or National Day or Independence Day, the year that celebrates independence from which country, current leader, since when, their position, their party, majority religion and its percentage, and then I'm working on adding currency, the currency symbol, and the primary economic driving force. So we take a look at a country like Australia here. Its official name is the Commonwealth of Australia. The endonym or the internal name for it is Australia. English is the most popular language at about 72%, also the most popular ethnicity at about 33%. About 7.5 million square kilometers are the island of Australia and the territory that the country encapsulates. Population is about 26.5 million, but with how big that territory is, that's only about 3 people per square mile. Capital city is Canberra, with about 4,500,000 people. And the largest city is still technically Sydney, but I learned today that the Melbourne metropolitan area is growing like crazy and could surpass Sydney in the next 10 years. Sydney sits at about 5.25 million people. Primary biome in Australia is, of course, desert with the outback. Continent, I've called it Oceania, and the region I've called mainland Australia. You could argue a whole bunch of things for that said continent. Their national day is the 26th of January, which celebrates their independence from the United Kingdom in 1901. Their current leader, technically the head of state, is Charles III, who's been king since the death of his mother on September 8th of last year. He is the king, does not belong to a party. He is the sovereign. The largest denomination in Australia is Catholics, with a 20% technical majority. The Australian dollar is their official currency, same dollar sign as we do here in America, and their primary economic driving force is their financial sector. One thing to note here is just official names of certain countries. If we sort here by the ones that I've done so far, like I said, I'm slowly working my way through this thing. We get countries. So Commonwealth of Australia is called Australia. Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan is the official name of Afghanistan now that the Taliban has taken over. They call it Afghanistan in Afghanistan. Very easy to remember there. Islamic Republic of Iran. I don't have an endonym yet for Iran. It's usually just called Iran. New Zealand is the full official name of New Zealand. Of course, you have the Maori endonym, which is called... Oh, I would have to look it up. Aotearoa or something similar to that. Algeria, People's Democratic Republic of Algeria. In Arabic or Berber, it is called Al Jazair or Algeria. Of course, Abkhazia is called Alanskara in Russian or Abkhaz. Albania is called Skipiri. China is called Zhonghua, or excuse me, Taiwan is called Zhonghua. The mainland country of China is called Zhongguo. Republic of Finland is called Suomi. Republic of Haiti is called Haiti. Republic of the Sudan is just called Sudan. Republic of the Union of Myanmar is called Myanmar. Slovak Republic is called Slovenska. And of course, the United States of America is typically referred to as the United States. Give it 10 years, it'll be called Estados Unidos. I'm just kidding. So that is what I have for that one. Let's then move to this one here. This is the only other one I have for history. This is just a sheet titled Dictatorships. Now, you could argue that a whole bunch of other countries, or a whole bunch of countries have dictatorships. You could argue that the current regime in the United States is a dictatorship. The past one was a dictatorship, blah, 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 going back however many years. But what I have here is a list of just countries that I've gone through so far. It's not the complete list of dictatorships throughout the years. And just when their country's single autocratic rule took place. It doesn't have to be necessarily a single leader, but I have it in order of when said dictatorship started, or the first years of said dictatorship. So the first one on this list, of course, is Russia. We start with the communist takeover in 1917 with Vladimir Lenin. Italicized means he died in office. If it's underlined, it means he was assassinated. You could speculate on the conspiracy theories, of course. But then in 1924, he was replaced with Joseph Stalin, who was technically the dictator of Mongolia until 1937, when he was replaced by Shurlugin Choibalsan, who died in office as well. Joseph Stalin ruled in Russia until 1953. That is kind of when their dictatorship ended. The Communist Party, of course, stayed in power until the 90s, but the technical dictatorship of the single rule of a single person ended there. Benito Mussolini started in his reign of terror in Italy in 1925, reigned until 1945. He wasn't killed in office technically, but he was usurped and then was killed afterwards technically. So let's see, Jorge Ubico here. Is that oh gosh. Sorry, I forgot to label this one. So we'll skip Jorge Ubico real quick. Of course, you have H-Man here in 1933, died in 1945, technically killed himself. So you could argue that I shouldn't have that underlined there, but that is Germany. 1939, we move to Slovakia and Josef Tiso. 1940, Hirohito stayed in power after World War II, of course, but the technical single-party rule of his office was from 1940 to 1945. Romania, we have it a couple different times. The first one was in 1940, lasted for about a year. That is Ion Antonescu, who died and was assassinated in office. 1971, we get the same thing with the socialists with Nicolae Ceausescu. Until 1989. Croatia, 1941, Ante Pavelic was voted out of office, or just simply removed from office. 1946, in Albania, we get Enver Hoxha, died in office. In, 1985. North Korea, of course, we start with the Kims in 1948. Kim Il-sung replaced after he dies in office by his son Kim Jong-il. I should italicize this one here. He also died in office in 2013, replaced by his son and current ruler of North Korea, Kim Jong-un. China, single-party state, you could argue it's a dictatorship, but in terms of single person, Mao Zedong, 1949 through 1976. We move to Hungary, 1949 to 1953, Matyas Rákosi. Then we move all the way to what I have in Myanmar, 1962 with Ne Win. Was taken out of office in 1988. Syria is a technical single-party state currently. Amin al-Hafiz took over in 1963, replaced in 1966 by Salah Jadid, replaced in 1970 by Hafez al-Assad, replaced in the year 2000 by his son and current president of Syria, Bashar al-Assad. Who must go? 1968, of course, we get one of the most notorious dictators of all time. Look up how he celebrated Christmas, but that is, of course, the dictator of Equatorial Guinea in the 60s and 70s, that being Francisco Macias Nguema. Was killed in office. Bolivia, Hugo Banzer in 1971 through 1978. Chile in 1973, of course, if you're familiar with Breaking Bad, you have heard of Augusto Pinochet. 1975, we get Pol Pot in Cambodia, lasts for about 4 years. 1979, we get Saddam Hussein in Iraq. 1981, we get the very short-lived dictatorship in Argentina of Leopoldo Galtieri, Robert Mugabe in Zimbabwe from 1987 to just in 2017. Turkmenistan, you get Saparmurat Niyazov. You could argue the current regime in Turkmenistan is a dictatorship. Afghanistan, a technical current dictatorship, 1996 through 2001. It was ruled by Mullah Omar. And then most recently taken back over in 2021. Current ruler there is Hibatullah Akhundzada. 2001, in Eritrea, we get the technical dictatorship of their current ruler, Isaias Afwerki. And that is all I have here so far. So that's all I have for you today in terms of history. Like I said, next time we do a history live stream, hopefully I have more to offer you. Let's go over to check out what we have coming up on the channel. We are here. This is our 30-second live stream on the channel. Next week is that college sports live stream we talked about. So tomorrow you should be seeing some college sports videos pop up on the channel. It should be daily at about 11 o'clock Eastern. Next week, we'll talk politics, kind of cover similar to what we talked about today. Then we'll do a football live stream as we move into September, ahead of the opening of the NFL season. TV, music, Olympics, superheroes, science, and Star Wars as we move into October. We always end the live stream. I'll switch my cameras again here. We always end the live stream with talking about some stuff on the channel, most specifically comments. Now, I won't cover every comment. There were a couple I didn't quite understand because they didn't seem to be in any language that I know of. Probably just typos. But about a week ago, let's see here. This is 5 days ago. Can you name every presidential election loser? So keep in mind the title of the video is, can you name every presidential election loser? Question mark. At Speedweed6747 says, I cannot. I actually got a good chuckle out of that one. So thank you, Speedweed. That made me laugh quite a bit. On the Blurry Face retrospective, my love letter to 21 Pilots video, at MarshallGuy4844 says, "This is the Pulp Fiction of YouTube videos." I don't know what that means specifically. I don't know if you're saying that's a good thing. I'm not sure if you're saying that it's a cult classic. I'm not sure if you're saying it's overrated, but thank you, I guess. I have a buddy who's a big Pulp Fiction fan, so he liked that comment. On Can You Name All 200 National Crests, at Albert the Gamer-GK7SN says, "Also, as you can see, there's a big difference in the Republican and monarchist coat of arms. Monarchist coat of arms have crowns, of course, and could also have an additional crown on the top of their shields." Yes, that is typically the case. They could also have a French-based or Latin-based motto as well. Yes, I don't want to be pedantic, but that is fairly obvious dealing with the history of each country. Yes. Republican coat of arms don't have crowns, and would also list the date of independence, democratic values into listing the country's names as well. Typically, yes, that's the case. Their mottos are usually in their native language. Not always, but fairly typically, yes. Also, in Eastern Europe, some of the republics have monarchist coat of arms, especially Serbia and Georgia, as their coat of arms are super monarchic. Yes, which is interesting, because like you said in your comment, typically republics don't have crowns. That's why in that specific video, Serbia threw me off. I was looking into the reason why in Eastern Europe specifically, a lot of these countries have monarchic coat of arms. And in the cases of places like Serbia, the reason is actually fairly similar to why Spain went back to monarchy after the Franco regime. And it is because the monarchy as a symbol, not necessarily as a power source, was seen during the times of communism, like we talked about specifically in Eastern Europe, because that's where the Iron Curtain kind of fell. In Eastern Europe, the monarchist systems or the monarchist history of each country was seen as a kind of rebellion or revolt against the communist rule. So when, like, in Eastern Europe, when they overthrew kind of the dictators or the communist affiliated rulers of their countries in the 80s or 90s, a lot of times they replaced symbology with monarchist symbology, or even in some cases put their monarchies back into place, like I said with Spain. Even if they don't really have any actual power, it was seen as a kind of a triumphant removal from the dictatorship that they had before. So yes, thank you to Albert the Gamer for pointing that out. And last but not least, the only other comment I have on the channel that I want to cover is the entire Black Mirror timeline. At Oscar Stankovic says, "I hate it. It's 2023, and in 2019 they didn't release Striking Vipers X, so I can play it with my homies." Yes, that is typically the case with fiction. I do appreciate the comment, though. The channel right now is sitting at 285 total subscribers. So thank you all very much for your participation in that. We talk about it every week. If you want to support me and everything I do here, or to allow me to have more time to put towards the channel so we can get more stuff like the Black Mirror timeline or my 21 Pilots retrospective videos, that sort of thing, more high effort videos, then we are hoping to get the channel to 1,000 subscribers. That is the minimal mark needed to monetize the channel. I am very hopeful that we can reach that by New Year's. We have about 4.5 months left for that to be the case. So please do subscribe if you're interested in stuff like this. How the channel works, like I said earlier in this video, is each week we go to a new topic. That's how my brain works. I have a lot of interests, and I didn't want to make a YouTube video about just one specific thing. But like I said, 285 total subscribers right now. In the last 28 days, we have about 29.3 thousand views on the channel. Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. 6,500 watch hours in the last 28 days. My Minecraft videos have started to pop off. So if you're interested in watching those and want to know more about my Minecraft world and the history and lore that I am putting into it behind the scenes, go check out the Instagram page at briarwood.mcft, MCFT standing for Minecraft, but the town is called Briarwood. I did actually get a question on the Instagram page where I got the name for Briarwood. It's actually really stupid. In the original iCarly series, like the original 2007 iCarly series. Carly, I can't remember if it's in the first season or second season, but she goes to a boarding school for just a brief, like an episode, and that boarding school is called Briarwood. And I don't know why, but the name of that school has always stuck in my mind. Like, if I were to ever have enough money to develop a neighborhood or like to build a settlement or a town or something, I would call it Briarwood, and that's where I get the name from. So it's one of the original iCarly episodes, so that is where that comes from. But go check out the Minecraft world on YouTube. Given every Sunday, I think we post a new video about it. That is in the playlist titled Briarwood/Minecraft. Or you can follow the Instagram, like I said, at Briarwood.mcft. Excuse me. That's all I got for you today. Thank you very much for being a part of this channel. Very short live stream today, but something coming out tomorrow, of course, with college football. We have a bunch of around the league videos. I didn't end up getting to an ACC around the league video. Hopefully I will do one of those for their football stadiums in the spring when we talk about college sports again. Of course, my Pac-12 video was made before all of the announcements was made before the Colorado announcement, and then of course was made before the Arizona's announcements, the Utah, the Oregon, the Washington announcements. So I do apologize that video is technically now outdated and making all of the other ones, the Big 10, Big 12 one, outdated. But you should see that this week. Should be a lot of fun. We will see you back here Monday for our live stream. In the meantime, see you very, very soon.